One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. Today on One Question is Patti Phillips, the CEO of the new Women Leaders in College Sports, of course, formerly known as NACWAA. Big release today on the rebrand, Patti, and we want to talk about the background and how you got to this point. And let's really start with the why. What's the core reason for the change from NACWAA to Women Leaders in College Sports?
Well, Matt, first of all, thanks so much for having me on. Really excited to be here and to be able to talk about the evolution of what we've been going through over the last several years. The why has been, it's been bubbling up for several years now that, a lot of people saying, what is NACWAA? Who is NACWAA? Saying the whole thing out, the National Association of Collegiate Women Athletics Administrators, was long and confusing. And quite frankly, I think we had evolved to where the name just wasn't accurately describing who we are and what we do. Our membership has really grown beyond what you might call, quote, an administrator. So we have coaches that are involved now, trainers, we have college presidents, all the way up and down the spectrum of people that work within intercollegiate athletics. And, so people would in industry would jump into NACWAA just kind of knowing it was that group, that women's kind of leadership group. But when you actually said what it was, then it was actually, I don't want to say it was a turnoff, but it was a narrow kind of group for other folks. It felt like they actually didn't fit in to that description. So the why has been, as we've evolved, as we've grown, and the industry has evolved and grown, that the name was a little too specific and it just didn't match who we were and what we were doing. The other part of the why was that anytime you have to take so long explaining who you are and what you do, you aren't actually saying what you're doing. And so we really wanted to be a little more specific with that.
Is there a specific moment in time in the past couple of years where it really crystallized to you, and maybe it was in conversation explaining what NACWAA was all about to somebody, and it just kind of the switch flipped for you that said, okay, it's really time for us to take a hard look at that? Is there a specific moment in time you remember in that regard?
Well, there's probably two moments. I think so many times as our membership has grown, when people have called and expressed interest in joining, they loved when they heard what we did, but they would call and say they didn't think they fit. So that was part that we realized, okay, as our membership is growing up, we don't have time to talk through every single person that is actually interested in becoming a member to explain that actually this is for you. It isn't this kind of narrow path. The other thing, as we've grown and have needed to engage more sponsors and partners, the amount of time we'd have to spend explaining who we were outside of the name, because at first we would just say, hey, we're a Women's Leadership Association. We develop, advance, and connect women leaders. People can connect with that, especially organizations and businesses that have a focus on women and advancing women. But then when they'd hear our name, they would back off a bit. So it was really spending so much time trying to connect the dots for people. So with our members and also with potential corporate partners. And we just were running out of time to do that. Again, it was taking away time from us doing, what we really want to do, which is serving our members.
How long did it take to get to this new brand of Women Leaders in College Sports? Who was part of the driving force behind the brand itself? And talk me through the process a little bit.
It was this last January that our board commissioned an exploratory process. So it was last March of 2016, we engaged our agency here, Global Prairie, that we do a lot of work with, to explore with members. They did focus groups and had questionnaires, and just we're gathering information about what the entity currently called NACWAA meant to our members, how they felt about it, how it served them, and trying to decide whether or not the name was really tied to that. So that exploratory process took several months in the spring. We had a subcommittee of our board that worked on this extensively, and obviously our board did as well. But after they came back and said, you know what, there's room for growth here. There's room for a new name. I mean, there's some organizations that you really can't change the name. Like Nike would not want to change their name. Quite frankly, the NCAA couldn't probably do it because of, the equity that's involved in that name, describing who they are and what they do. For us, it was determined that we could. So then it was a process of, kind of evolution versus revolution. And an evolution name is, we ended up probably in the middle of that, Matt, but an evolution would be another acronym, something similar, shortened or something like that. The revolution name would be something completely different. And originally, quite frankly, that's what I wanted. It was some kind of inspiring women's name like Athena League or something, and those were all taken, of course. But it was interesting. The agency said during that time, part of our issue with NACWAA was we had to explain what it was. So if we went with some revolutionary name that was some inspiring take on strength or power or leadership for women, that we still had to explain, we were right back where we started from. So, it was quite, it's a grueling process, quite frankly, because you are tied to the name. I mean, NACWAA was NACWAA for 38 years, and we didn't take that lightly. So, back to your original question, it was an ongoing process almost all year last year. We did finally vote and agree on it in October at our board meeting, but it's taken us several months to get everything ready on the back end for the launch, including the new website that will go along with it. So it's been quite a process.
Yeah, these things.
And yes, I've lost sleep over it.
I'm sure you did. These things certainly don't happen overnight. And one of the next steps in this process, I imagine, is how do you gauge feedback from your constituents? How do you gauge feedback from the marketplace on the brand you've come to land on, and how it can be positioned better or more appropriately now that you're going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that we spend a lot of time talking about. We're a membership association, so we, having our members engaged in this process was really, really important to us. So obviously we talked to key constituents throughout the year, just kind of floating it out there. First of all, to see if there was even openness to that. And quite frankly, there was, because NACWAA was the second name for the association. So this would be kind of the third iteration. And so that was good to know. And we were really intentional about not getting away from our core. So when we went through the process again, the 4 words we couldn't lose, we felt like, were women, leaders, college, sports. And so we worked on several different iterations of what that might look like, but staying close to our core, which was in college sports, was really important. And so we floated that out to people throughout the process. So we were really intentional. I've personally reached out, and our board has, to all of our past presidents, many of our legacy members, because that group of women are really the trailblazers that got this going, and there's so much respect and appreciation for what they have done, and we wanted to make sure they were somewhat a part of the process. And they've been great and very supportive and on board. You're never going to be able to get to everybody in advance. We did, though, have a group of ambassadors, and those were really involved members over the last couple of years, members that are leading committees or circles or board members, et cetera, that received ambassador kits in advance that are have T-shirts and stuff, and so they're tweeting and talking about it on social media, and we got great response from those folks as well. So in the early goings, fingers crossed, I think all the folks we've talked to, men and women, have been really understanding and supportive of it. But time will tell, and as you know, these things don't happen overnight. A name change with an association like ours with so many members and tenants in the industry, it's going to take a while, and there will be some people that have a hard time with it, and we probably won't win everyone over. We hope that most people understand why we did it, and we hope that they understand that we did the best we could to make sure that we were inclusive of all of our members. And that was the other part, we wanted a name that everybody, especially all women up and down in athletic departments and on campuses, felt like they could be included in. And we were really, really intentional about that process. So we'll be measuring all this on social media and obviously measuring feedback. And so far, the response has been good. And we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that that's the case moving forward.
Yeah, I'm curious, Patti, who you consulted within the industry who's no school has gone through a name change of this institution. I guess there have been some that have, Southwest Missouri State became Missouri State. There's examples of that, but this is maybe even more dynamic change. There's schools who have changed their mascots. But did you talk to anybody specifically about their process in this light and maybe suggestions they had for you to remember as you all worked through this?
Yeah, well, one, for instance, it wasn't a name change, but it was a rebrand, was Amy Huchthausen with the America East, who's just an outstanding leader. She was actually on our board and one of the key folks that helped us through this process. We did reach out to folks, and, again, every institution, every organization is different. It has happened over time. And the other part was we had, I think, the best in the business working with us on this. I mean, Global Prairie had clients, they have clients like Google and others, and they had many clients that they'd gone through a rebrand with, and we were able, and they shared a lot with us through that process. So I will tell you, we were careful about just getting open-ended information from folks about a rebrand. I think that's tougher for people. It's one of those things where when we got the information out there about the name change, most people were on board because they didn't have to think through what our other options would be. The grueling part for us was going through the options and trying to figure out which one was the best. And, we had just the right group involved with that. But so I think that makes it easier. I don't know if that answered your question. We did a lot of reach outs. There's some that I don't want to reveal names on. I can tell you, as I did mention, Amy at the America East, she went through a rebrand, and they gave us great tips about the rollout and the communication strategy and those things as well.
Yeah, I'm interested. Maybe how many times in the office over the next 6 months somebody answers the phone and just says NACWAA.
Sure.
Just the time it'll take to change that behavior.
It does. It gets ingrained in you. And quite frankly, the good thing about NACWAA was it was 2 syllables. So it was easy to say NACWAA. It's 2 syllables. It's quick. The problem is nobody knows what the heck it means. But in fact, do you know what it stands for? I'm curious. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe only because you said it earlier in this conversation, and that's National Association of Women's. Athletics.
You didn't even get it.
Right.
See, yeah. And so, and actually, quite frankly, our board members couldn't even always get it right. So that's where you get back to, NACWAA was easy, but no one knew exactly what it was. And when you did say it out, one time I tried to count how many syllables were actually in that whole thing when it was spoken, and it was a lot. And so, are there going to be moments where it's hard for folks? Sure. I think over time, if we chat again in a year, we'll have come a long way, and these things sometimes take a while. I was just watching on TV the other day, what is it, Burlington Coat Factory. They're still trying to get people to say Burlington. And, it's just part of whether it's a company or an organization, it's part of an evolution. And, we are really going to encourage folks to not use an acronym for this. And if they need to shorten it to say women leaders, and I know that's tough because in our industry, folks do that, but we will not be communicating about ourselves with any acronym. And that's the other thing we think is important. It adds strength and power and differentiates us a little bit, which is part of what we were looking for. For us, we needed that. I think everyone that has their names is perfect for them. For us, we felt like we needed a change, and so we're really going to encourage our partners and friends and everyone else to refer to us as women leaders in college sports or just women leaders.
So the logo has changed a bit, but it's the same color scheme, same general look. But was there discussion about how you transition and evolutionize that piece as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. We spent a lot of time on that, and because we didn't want to lose our core of who we were, we're not really changing who we are and what we do and all of our programming. So we were intentional about definitely not changing the colors. So our main colors are still the blue and the green. And the logo, it has only evolved. It hasn't changed. It's still, as we've called her, the inspired woman. It's just the top half of her now with a larger flame. The flame was really intentional with our original rebrand 6 years ago, and that the flame signifies lighting the way for women and passing the torch, which are two really important tenets of this association and what we stand for and how women support women. So actually, that's been enlarged. So the flame is larger. I actually think it looks more Olympic now, which is cool, and it's easier to kind of brand on things. And of course, in the logo, the words "women leaders" are the strong, bold words. That was intentional. In college sports are the bottom line. And so we went through the 4 words, obviously, and had to prioritize. And the most important ones are women leaders. In college sports happens to be the industry we are in. It is our core industry. And so, again, we didn't want to stray from that. But the important message is women leaders. And, I want to stress again how important it is that we wanted to make sure that all women at every level, no matter if you're a grad student on up to a presidential level, felt like they were a part of this organization without having to be told that, without having to be talked through the process. So we hopefully the words as you see them in the new logo, as you hopefully have seen this morning as it's gone out, really help to identify that and put the emphasis obviously on women leaders. So it's an exciting day for us.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.